Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And I'm a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write for the Chicago Reader. I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You two should, I feel like I need a salute. You listeners can't see what they're doing, so it makes no difference. But
yes, Evan salutes me after I say Gallica because it sounds like a Star Trek thing.
Yeah, it sounds like a space age organization. Anyway, my name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
I tried a new one. Just a joyous wee.
Yeah. I know, you threw your head back like you were on like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You're like, woo!
Is that what you sound like on a roller coaster?
No. But I just, I wanted it to be nice and high pitched, so that it was clear that we were having fun. So.
Mission accomplished.
Lower pitch, not so fun. Higher pitch, fun. To see, it all makes sense.
Well, in addition to talking about salutes and roller coaster rides, we, of course, are here to talk about movies. Before we dive into this week's films, we want to tell you about this week's Patreon episode. We talk about a patron's request. We talk about Transformers, the movie, the 1986 animated film, and we have a blast. And we also reminisce about some nostalgic things from the 80s. It's always a good time over on Patreon. So if you're a patron, go check it out. And if you're not, please consider joining. For $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus episodes. Woo. Now, for this, woohoo!
Transformers.
More than meets the eye. Robots in disguise. Now, for this week, we're not talking about Transformers on the main show. We are talking about Perpetrator, and we're talking about Our Father, the Devil. So we're going to kick things off with talking about Perpetrator, which is a horror film. It's written and directed by Jennifer Reeder. It stars Kia McKernan, Christopher Lowell, Melanie Liburd, Irian Roach, and Alicia Silverstone. So here is... Sorry. I'm just failing all over the place here. Okay, and here is the synopsis from the press release. Johnny Baptiste is a reckless teen sent to live with her estranged Aunt Hildy. On her 18th birthday, she experiences a radical metamorphosis, a family spell that redefines her called Forevering. When several teen girls go missing at her new school, a mythically feral Johnny goes after the perpetrator.
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't know if that's... Is that really all that accurate? Because first of all, she turns 18 like 4 times in the movie. There's like 46 cakes. And each time she's like, I don't want cake. And each time Alicia Silverstone's like, you're going to eat cake. Except she doesn't sound like that.
But she is kind of menacing when she does talk about the cake.
She is menacing. Yeah.
And there's blood in the cake.
There's blood in the cake. There's blood in their mouths. There's blood. Like, there's blood in the water. I don't know. Whatever. Megan, I would be interested to know what you thought of Perpetrator.
Oh, okay. So, well, to flesh things out a little bit more before I give you my thoughts. So Johnny she lives with her dad. She doesn't know who her mom is. She goes to this like private school, and they do these weird, well, maybe they're not weird nowadays, but it's weird to me to see this. They're doing like these drills about mass shootings or mass murders. And I don't mean drills as in like, hey, there's a mass shooting, what do you do? It's more like a self-defense class against people attacking. It's very strange the way they frame it. And this is a very heightened, stylized film. And so plays with reality. And yeah, Johnny is kind of getting along with her aunt, even though she never had met her before. And you kind of get the sense that there's something weird going on with Johnny even before the forevering happens, because like when her dad's nose bleeds, her nose bleeds, and her dad's face kind of does this weird morphing thing when he's in the bathroom alone. And yeah, and then girls are missing from the school, and one of the girls is like, well, girls go missing all the time. That's just what happens. And then Johnny teams up with this other girl who they make out together, which, woohoo, I'm always here for a queer hookup or queer love. And then they think it's this guy who's doing it. And then come to find out it's his dad who's kidnapping people to give them to the, quote, perpetrator. And it's all to like cut off their body parts to feed to him, essentially. So it's very creepy. So that's fleshing it out a little bit more. I liked this. So at first, I wasn't sure if I was going to, because when it starts off, I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm into this. But then once Alicia Silverstone came in, I was like, ooh, she's kind of campy in this, but not in a like traditionally campy way, like almost in like a serious way, but still kind of like this gothic, kind of menacing hint of campiness. I don't know. I was really into it. And my one criticism is that I wish there was more of her, because I really liked her in it. But yeah, once the film kind of gets going and then the girls are missing, then I was like, oh, I'm kind of into this. And it's very trippy. It's weird. There's a lot of blood in the mouth, like Dave, like you said. There, like, even one time when she's like eating lipstick because Alicia Silverstone is punishing Johnny for doing something. And then she's chewing the lipstick and it looks like blood in her mouth. But yeah, what I really like about this is it's very clear there's a feminist commentary being made about how women and girls always have to watch out. They always have to look over their shoulder. They always have to worry about lecherous men. They always have to worry about being assaulted. They always, like, just kind of, unfortunately, we're bombarded with unwanted advances, attention, whatnot. And we shouldn't have to. We should just be able to live our lives. And the twist is that with the forevering, or this isn't the twist, but the forevering imbues Johnny and all the women in her family with this really heightened sense of empathy. So she can feel what other people are feeling, but she can also like tap into other loved ones of theirs and like talk to them that way. And she can kind of change her face too a little. And you find out that she hasn't known who her mom is the whole time. And surprise, her dad is not her dad. Her dad is her mom. And she was hiding out as taking the form of a man to protect her and Johnny because her dad was a creep. And yeah, and her mom has this really interesting conversation with her where she's talking about how she really liked the fact that she didn't get any unwanted attention and how she felt kind of freeing that way. And I just think there's a lot of interesting commentary happening here. And something that one of the reviews I read, there's a snippet of that I read from the New York Times, was the critic said that they liked how women's empathy is seen as a strength and not a hindrance in this film. And I really like that too. And I think that's a great observation. And it's an interesting way to deal with kind of witches and supernatural. So yeah, I think this is a weird film. I don't know if it all works or if it all comes together, but I liked it. So Dave, what did you think?
This is going to be one of those shows where I'm way on the opposite end of the spectrum.
I had a feeling when I went first.
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said about like the importance of the feminist message and that empathy is a strength, not a weakness. Mm-hmm. But I think that this movie takes itself so seriously that it's really hard for me to take it seriously. Because it's like, all I can think of is a director standing off telling Alicia Silverstone, yeah, do that voice. I mean, it's just, it's really, I just found it interminable. And I also, the other problem that I had with it was the moment Chris Lowell shows up on screen, I'm like, well, here's your fucking perpetrator, Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Like, why don't you just why don't you have him hold Yeah. Why don't you just have him hold a sign that says, I'm the perpetrator? And it's supposed to be this big mystery, and it's just, there are some good ideas here, but I think, and I had a similar problem with Knives and Skin, another Jennifer Reeder movie. And she also directed, I don't love the VHS series, but she hands down directed what I think is the worst segment in any of the VHS movies, which is the SWAT team and the wraparound story in VHS 94. Also interminable. Maybe it's because it's a wraparound story. I don't know. But I just had a real problem with this. There's just no humor in this movie. And when I say humor, I don't mean like jokes or funny haha stuff. I mean, it's just like, it is so deadly serious about itself. It's just like, I can't get on board with it. And I also thought the woman who played Johnny, she's okay. I didn't love Alicia Silverstone's performance like you did. That, it's kind of interesting in a movie that takes itself so seriously at the point where it's almost camp itself, which isn't really fair of me to say, I don't think, but at the same time, there is a little bit of that. But she's like in a different movie. Like, Alicia Silverstone's in a different movie from all the other people in it. She's in the she's in Grey Gardens. I mean, I don't, it's... So there's that. And then I don't really think that most of the cast is very good. Even Chris Lowell, who's usually a pretty solid presence, I'm like, this just isn't, this whole like heightened, stylized way that everybody is speaking just doesn't work. And I feel like if Jennifer Reeder had just dialed back everything 15% and made it a little more human, that it might have worked a lot better for me. Not that I am the end all be all of whatever about horror movies, but and I can't even remember what she, like, when I come out of the bed and I say, what does she say? There's like Operation whatever.
Oh, the code. Yeah. So yeah, when Johnny gets kidnapped by the perpetrator, which I feel weird saying that, but it's true. Yeah, and she finds all the missing girls. They're there. They're being held captive except for one of them who is murdered. And then she's like, you all run when I say something, 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 massive bloodbath. So it's like this 4 or 5 word, like code word.
It's like, why don't we just, like have one word? And if it has to be something like bloodbath, like bloodbath, and then, but I get it. It's stylized. It's got to have a thing. Yes.
And I would argue, I think that's where the humor is.
It's played so deadly straight that if it's supposed to be humorous, it went over my head.
I'm not even saying it's funny. I think that's where the kind of like humor is.
Okay.
Because it's so absurd.
It is so absurd. And so, like I said, I think the performances are just, with the heightened, stylized kind of thing, they come across as stilted rather as like compelling. But then you have Johnny's mother, when she takes the form of her mother as opposed to her father, she speaks in a totally naturalistic way. Like,
she does.
There's no affectation with her whatsoever. So that's jarring. And then she has this huge exposition dump in the last like 15 minutes before the end, where she literally explains everything that has come before. And it's like, this is just shit screenwriting. And I'm sorry to describe it that way, but like, it's just bad. I don't know necessarily. I should say, this is not my kind of movie. So take everything, like, if I'm going to give this on a 4-star scale, 1.5 stars, add a star, for you, so that it's 2.5. But I just think that what I perceive as this movie's shortcomings can't be outdone, can't be overcome by whatever strengths it does have. And I'd never need to see a birthday cake again in my life. So.
I do like that it ends on the birthday cake again with Alicia Silverstone saying we're all going to eat cake. And then all the girls are there along with Johnny and her mother.
Yeah.
So, Dave, you're saying you don't want a birthday cake this year?
You know, I don't really eat cake, so I know it's hard to believe because I have me a sweet tooth, but I don't really like cake. So, you know, what are you going to do? I know people think that's weird.
I mean, I usually ask for brownies for my birthday instead of cake, so I don't think it's that weird.
Oh, brownies are better. Brownies are better than cake. And I like
brownies,
cake.
Absolument. Now, if you give me a cupcake when you've got concentrated cake, that's definitely more, you know, cakes dry out too easily, et cetera, et cetera. So, and now here I am talking about cupcakes instead of the movie. So, I mean, I always feel
talks about cake.
Well, that's true. I feel bad like coming down so hard on it, but it's just like, you know, we have movies that are and are not Evan movies. This is not a Dave movie.
I suspect this would not be an Evan movie as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that aside from the exposition dump at the end, there's a little too much of like every time Alicia Silverstone shows up on screen, she explains something, you know. So it's just I don't know. There's just all those stops in the momentum, et cetera, et cetera. I will give it credit for maintaining a tone. You know, like Jennifer Reeder is like, this is what I'm going for. This is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And she did that. So, you know, kudos to her for that. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in that regard. Not that it doesn't work, but I agree with you in that the tone and the style. And, you know, in a time when there's so much kind of middling, mediocre films and TV shows, I don't know. We talk about this a lot. We talk about weirdness, and I'm here for the weird. And, you know, I don't, there's certain things that you're saying that I agree with you. Like, I don't think all the performances are great. I think they are very uneven. And not all of the film does come together, but, you know, I gotta give it credit for originality and for its aesthetic and its tone, and it's very stylized. And I think there are a lot of people who are going to love this and just eat this up because there are a lot of people who loved Knives and Skin, which I was not the biggest fan of, but it's very stylized the same way.
Has a lot of the same themes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, clearly she wants to explore themes with adolescent girls, and I'm here for that. That's really cool. But yeah, I mean, I applaud her originality and kind of weirdness and the stylized thing. And yeah, it's not going to work for everybody, but if it hits for you, it's going to hit. It's going to hit hard. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of dug this. So
yeah, I think that's right. I think it's. I don't think this is a middle ground kind of movie. I think you're either on board or you're not. You know.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know. I kind of liked it. I think because I like films about witches, and this is a different take on it than what I've seen. And I don't know, kind of at the end, I'm like, are they forming a coven? I hope so. This is great.
I mean,
they're all banding together against the evil men. I'm here for it.
I could see that, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what is one piece of the movie that I did like, that I genuinely liked? When Johnny's teeth go jagged and she's kind of got those vampire teeth. I was like, A, those actually look real, and B, I haven't seen like teeth like that for whatever creature she's supposed to become. That's a different look. And I was kind of like, all right, you know, it was gross as fuck, but you know, like.
Well, she also reaches into the villain's chest and grabs out his heart too, and then holds it in her hand and says, "What are we going to do with this?" Which is kind of amazing too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Chris Lowell.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a departure for him, but not really, because he was in Promising Young Woman.
Young Woman, yeah. This is like that performance, but you know, like ramped up, you know, 25%.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think I've done my I've done my worst.
I mean, hey, it just didn't work for you,
Yeah.
that happens,
Yeah.
but yeah, I dug it. Can't win them all.
Yeah.
But I definitely think there are a lot of really fascinating ideas here. So,
Oh, you know
all
what?
right. Oh,
I am gonna have
yes.
one. I do have one final thought. I feel like that if I saw this at like the
I know what you're going to
Coolidge
say.
the Coolidge
Yes.
horror marathon, I would be
Yep.
a lot more into this because I can just kind of ride with whatever they throw at you. And so if
Right,
this was
right.
like the first unadvertised movie, I might just be
Mhm.
like, yeah, I'm down. We watched Evil Dead 2 and then we watched Nightmare on Elm Street and now we're going a little indie. I like it, So, yeah. But
Yep.
there you go.
Yeah, so maybe that's the thing. You need to embed this in a horror marathon.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Nice little surprise. All right. Well, now we're going to talk, all three of us. Woohoo! We're going to talk
Yeah.
about the French film Our Father the Devil. And this is written and directed by Elie Fumbi. And it is a thriller. And it was also nominated for an Independent Spirit Awards this year. And it also premiered at Tribeca, where it won Best Narrative, the Audience Award. So here, oh, good God, this is a very long synopsis. So let me see if I can shorten this a bit. Okay. Marie is a head chef at a retirement home in small town France. Her day-to-day life is spent caring for residents, hanging out with her coworker and best friend, and teasing a potential new romance. But that's disrupted by the arrival of Father Patrick, an African priest whom she recognizes from a terrifying episode in her homeland. As he further endears himself to the residents and staff, Marie is forced to decide how best to deal with this reminder of her troubled past. And this stars Bebita Sajo and Suleiman C. Savané. All right. So let's dig right in. This is a very intense film.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll flesh it out a little bit more. So I was going to ask what you guys think of it, but I'll flesh it out a little bit more of the story.
Cool.
So yeah, so she sees this priest and she immediately faints, and she is utterly convinced that this is the guy who murdered her parents and her baby sibling, and raped her. And so...
And turned her into a child soldier too.
Yes, that's right. Well, we don't learn that right away, though. I feel like we learn that later. But
You're
yes,
right.
but he does turn her into a child soldier too. That's right. So yeah, so she is like, wants nothing to do with him. She's creeped out. She's bothered as he's visiting the residents in the retirement home. And then they're alone in the kitchen one night, and he keeps asking her for food and asking her for things, and she's like, the kitchen is closed, and he keeps bugging her. And then she takes a frying pan and wails him, and then takes his body and takes him to a cabin that she was given by one of the residents who is also a chef, and they've bonded over cooking and kind of their similar personalities. And this woman changed her will and left her this cabin in the woods on the mountains. It's beautiful. And so she takes him there and basically tortures him and to try to get him to admit that who he is. And he keeps saying he is not that person. He's not that person. So, yeah. And that's where things go even more awry. Okay, guys, what did you think? Evan, what did you think?
I thought this was a really great film. I found it very complicated, thorny. It really delves into trauma quite effectively, especially in those opening scenes where she first hears him and you see such great acting, and the way her face just kind of reveals utter shock and horror of hearing him and then seeing him and fainting. And when she's stuck in the kitchen with him, the way he is so intimidating and triggering to her. And I just thought that was all very well done. And I liked how after she takes him, back to that cabin, I think the film does a pretty effective job of making you think at first he could not be this guy. He could be just
Right.
a priest who she thinks like maybe she's coming undone and is just, her trauma is getting the best of her and she's just assuming that this guy, because he's similar. But no, I love I love that the movie kind of makes it think that that's plausible and then reveals that it's him, and then just it becomes so complicated after that, because like you totally understand her desire to just kill this guy and for revenge and punishment for all the horrible things that he's done. But the movie to me is really interesting in that, like, when he gets free later and he knocks her out, he doesn't then turn around and start torturing her and doing fucked up shit to her.
No.
It's like they sit down and have this like really messed up heart to heart where they kind of like dig into what happened. And so I respect that the movie goes there, and I also respect that later in the film when her friend shows up and stops her from killing him, that she doesn't. And it's just it's so, I don't know, it's so complicated, and that's what I love about this movie, but it's also really artfully done. Like the
Mm-hmm.
cinematography I think is really amazing. I love all these perspectives of seeing the character from the inside of somewhere, like the inside of a cabinet or like the inside of the cabin
Mm-hmm.
looking out at her. I just thought it was so well told of a story, and so interesting and so well acted. And I was actually really excited to talk to you both about it because I knew we would really have to dig into this ethically, and because we can talk about all of the plot. So yeah, I really dug this. I was really excited to talk to you both about it, but it's heavy. It's definitely a difficult watch, and it's tough at the end when she does let him go and they're sharing this moment together. I can't remember if it's the sun is rising or setting. It's setting, right? We've reached the end.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they're standing there together, kind of watching the sun set together, and you're just thinking, okay, well, what now? What next? In a way that's just, I don't know. My brain was going like a mile a minute. Like, what really would come next for this character? I don't know. So, anyway, that's a very long and convoluted way of saying I really enjoyed this, and yeah.
I
Okay.
don't think that was convoluted at all. I thought that was really articulate and great, but
Oh, thank you.
but you're welcome. I love what you talk about though when you mentioned when it's revealed that he is indeed the the murdering soldier that that she knew so many years ago, and it's so great, and
Mhm.
she tricks him, and it's such a great thing because she speaks, I think it's Mandinka, which is
Yes.
yeah, which is language of an ethnic group that is in Guinea, which is where she's from. And it's a small population, so it's not like everyone speaks it there. And then she said, and she's asking him, she code switches and she asks him, instead of speaking in French, she asks him in that. She's like, would you like honey on your bread? And he's like, yes, please, or yes. And then
Mhm.
she's got him and she knows. And the look
Oh
on her
yeah.
face, the look on her face, it's capturing so many emotions because she's like crazy laughing because she's like, oh my god, I knew it, I wasn't crazy, I knew it, and I can't believe I got you. But also she's like on the verge of tears, but she's also like angry and like terrifying, like she looks terrifying, and it's amazing. And the fact that actress captures all of those conflicting emotions is just incredible. And I also love what you
Mhm.
said, Evan, about the cinematography. And you're absolutely right. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous film. And what I also love is about all those angles, like from inside of cabinets and inside of walls. What I love too, and you said that the priest, you hear his voice before you actually see him and see his face. I love that they're almost never in the same frame at first. And when they are, he's kind of dominating her, like dominating the
Yes.
frame. And
Yes.
then as the film goes along, she's dominating the frame. And then at the very end of the film, when her friend Nadia is there and she's like holding her as she's sobbing and he's off to the right, they're in the same frame together in like a wide shot. And I love that. I love how the film uses space, that spatial and mise en scène and spatial awareness to convey her emotions of being dominated by her traumatic past and by him, and then how the roles reverse and then they're on kind of an even keel. I love that.
Yeah. Really well done. The use
So
of
well
space
done.
and
Yeah.
the use of characters within the space of the frame of the camera. It's that was another thing that really resonated with me. Seeing him
Totally.
strapped to that chair, kind of witnessing her breakdown and having to just sit in the discomfort of like, this is something I did to another human being.
Yep. Oh my God. Okay, Dave, what did you think?
I think I liked this a lot. I don't think I liked it as much as the two of you, but I think this is really well done, really well acted. I agree with you both that it's shot just expertly, but I could not stop getting Death and the Maiden vibes the entire time I was watching this, because it's essentially the same story, except this one is a little more horrific. When you learn the details of the torture. But that being said, the performances are just astounding in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is one of those movies where I try to watch French movies without subtitles, but I actually they're burned into the screen on this, so I couldn't like turn them off. And I'm guessing neither of you could either. But I was able to follow it just because of the emotions in the scene. And, there are a lot of words in here that I, understand. And so I was able to watch most of it without reading it, which was very cool.
That is cool.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since I've done that. And the other thing is, I really loved, I agree with you both on like the framing of shots. One of the shots that I loved was after Marie hooks up with the bartender finally, which by the way, she does after she stabs the priest, which is like the connection between sex and violence, the implicit connection between sex and violence is like, it's really not subtle, but at the same time, it's really well done. Because he tries to escape, and then it's after he ties her up, right? And she gets out.
It is.
Yeah, and then she gets him back into the cabin, and I don't know exactly how she pulls it off, but she basically beats the fuck out of him, and she must have stabbed him or gotten some blood spatter on her shirt somehow. And the first thought she has is, I'm going to go fuck the bartender. So, which is, I feel like that's a Paul Schrader move, if we're being honest. But
no,
'cause-
I have
no.
I have a divergent view.
no, the reason I say that is because this terrible movie he made. What's it called? It's with Christopher Walken and Rupert Everett. And after they meet, there's this couple that meets Christopher Walken and his wife when they're on vacation in Italy. Comfort of Strangers. And this guy's like, Christopher Walken's like devious and mysterious, and he's kind of like nasty, and like they spend an afternoon with him, and then all they can do for the next day is like, they just can't stop fucking. And that's just the connection I made between him being a gross, violent person and the violence that Marie has just committed. And then I just conflated the two movies, I guess is what I'm saying. But anyway, what I really liked is after the sex scene in the morning when, or I guess it actually is later that evening, when the bartender, whose name I can't remember, he's like
Arnaud. He has such a French French name.
His name?
Arnaud.
Arnaud. That's right. He's just like lying in bed, kind of relaxed, and he's, you can tell from the moment that you first see him on screen, which is in the opening scene, that he's really into her, and has been for a while, and he's finally, he's told her that very explicit things he wants to do to her. They've finally come together, and he's like stretched out in the bed, and then she's like forward in the frame. This is after she's put her clothes on and she's like standing up, and she's like forward in the frame, and he's kind of distant in the background. And it's just like the distance between them. They don't even have to, I mean, they do talk about like the distance between them a little bit, but they wouldn't have to because of the way the shot's framed. He's way back here. She's way up here in the foreground. And there's just a lot of care put into the lighting and the camera work, which a lot of the movies we see, they don't put a lot of attention in the lighting and the camera work because, you know, we see a lot of low budget movies that don't have that opportunity, I think. So, yeah, I just, the one quibble I think that I have with this is that I feel it's just a smidge long. I feel like, you know, Marie comes and goes to the cabin so many times, and it takes the police so long to, like, now granted, this is in Luchon, which is a tiny town on like the French-Spanish border, so maybe it makes sense that the police would take like 6 days to be like, hey, where's this priest? But
she also says that she tells him that because he's like, the police are going to look for me, and she's like, you're a black immigrant, they're not going to care.
Exactly. But I just think that maybe one day less of the torture, because it doesn't get one note. That's not what I'm trying to say. But it just does start to feel sort of, you know, you've seen Marie change from being how we see her in the beginning to being this chef, and she's hanging out with like her mentor or the older resident who's the chef, and they just get along so well, and she's been gifted the cabin, and then to watch her, you know, hear the priest's voice and then see him and then faint and then just everything kind of ratchets up. But I feel like it ratchets up to a point where it's like, all right, we've ratcheted up. So let's speed it up. But then it does have that gangbusters ending with what's the friend's name?
Nadia.
When Marie like just has that purge, you know, of finally telling someone, because you get the feeling she's never mentioned any of this to anyone.
Right.
So she
and that's when she admits that she killed a child.
Right.
Like, which is horrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that she wouldn't have to go through the same thing that I went through. And
which is so wrenching.
Yeah. And then that final scene when Marie and Father Patrick are standing next to each other, I was just like, Jesus Christ, this movie, you know?
Yeah. So I have so many things to comment. Well, actually, I really just two things that you said, Dave, because you had so many great things to say. When you talk about the length and how it felt a little too long and how you wanted it to cut back a day, I totally get that, because I definitely think, like, up until the point when you find out, oh no, the priest really is, you know, the murderer, rapist, it's like it feels very quickly paced, and then it kind of slows down. But I actually think that's very intentional, because you were reminded of The Death in the Maiden, which absolutely it's a very similar, if not the same plot. And I was reminded of the horror film Volition, which came out last year. And it's about a woman who's raped by an acquaintance, not an acquaintance, a friend of hers. And she basically plots out kidnapping him and torturing him and murdering him. And then she does. And then afterwards, she's like, oh, that didn't really bring me the relief I thought it would. And so I think this film is kind of doing that, where there is this kind of monotony for the audience, because it's not really bringing her the catharsis, even though it is initially. And that also brings me to your other point, where you talked about the violence and the conflation of, or rather the juxtaposition of sex and violence. I think that's the most fascinating thing, or one of the most fascinating things about this film, because it has, there's so much potency in that as a person who's traumatized, because when you are dealing with trauma, especially rape, sexual assault, it is very much, you often disassociate from your body, and to feel a sense of agency over your body and to want to engage in sex can be a really, really, really powerful thing, a real reclamation of your agency. And so the fact that she so the fact that it is juxtaposed with the violence against him, to me, it makes perfect sense. And that's why I said I have a divergent view, because I'm like, I don't think it's like a Paul Schrader way, because it's not so much like, oh, sex and violence the way so many movies do that.
Yeah, I get what you're doing. Yeah.
But but I totally get what you mean. But like for me, as like a person who has endured trauma and PTSD, I'm thinking of it as no, it's a way for her to reclaim her body since she's been raped. And so it's like this jubilant thing in a way. And so that's why she wants to extend that to sex. But anyway, it's brilliant. And there's so many layers to it. And like you said, Evan, it's such a complicated film. And that's what I love about it. But yeah, I agree with everything you both said. Well, not that it was too long, because I don't think it is. But that's the only thing I don't agree with you, Dave. But
I agree with that. I think it was slightly too long, but not for the same reason.
But I just want to say I love the acting. I love the cinematography. These performances are, like you said, outstanding, absolutely incredible. Cinematography is so meticulous, so well done. Yeah, this is just incredible.
I'm going to hitch my wagon to your theory about the sex and violence, because the way you explain it in your way of thinking makes perfect sense to me.
Thank you.
No, it really does. I hadn't thought about it quite that way, but to use a kind of hackneyed phrase, taking your power back. It's like I now have control over. I've done this thing. I want to continue the control that I have in this situation.
Yes.
And here's a way I can do it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I was going to say something else, but I forgot what it was. Couldn't have been that important. Oh, well.
Yeah. I think that the film's statement about that is very potent, about the idea of her regaining agency and power and confidence from doing this. And I kind of like that, because so many movies talk about revenge and how it's not as sweet, and it's ultimately empty, which it does turn out to be for her. But for a little while, it is hitting the spot for her. It is doing what she wanted it to do. And I like that the movie goes there. I like that the movie shows someone actually enjoying revenge for a little while before they realize, oh shit, like I can't see this all the way through to completion. I can't just murder someone. That's not good. That's a little too far.
Right. Well, because it's not going to bring her family back. It's not going to heal her trauma. That's not really what she needs. And I love that Nadia is such a loyal friend to Marie. And when Marie is like, you don't know me. I'm terrible. I've murdered people. I murdered a child. Like, she's saying like all these terrible things, like basically get away from me. And she says a similar thing to Arnaud. She's like, why don't you get it? I'm a terrible person, because she's carrying all of this trauma and guilt. And then Nadia's like, I'm not going anywhere. And she says it, and then she does it, and she like physically holds her. Like, it's just beautiful. It's so good.
It is. And for a split second, I honestly thought that Nadia might kill the priest for her.
I did too.
I thought that the movie might
too.
go there. And honestly, I would have been on board with that too. Like, oh no, I got you. You go outside. I'll take care of business. Let's finish this as friends.
Yeah, I mean, she was Marie was holding the claw hammer 30 seconds earlier.
She was.
I remember what I was going to say. I really liked that Father Patrick is eventually portrayed as also a victim. I mean, he did these horrible things, but I appreciate that. I believe that he really is contrite and and is trying to repent. Now, the breadth of his crimes, I think, goes beyond what we can possibly fathom.
Right.
But I did get the feeling that he was legitimately trying to atone for what he had done, as a priest. So
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was kind of, and it was, once he like escaped and then he snuck up on her in the woods and he tied her up back in the cabin, there was that one fleeting moment when he went in to strangle her, and then he stopped himself and he was like, what, I'm not this person anymore. And I thought that was really powerful too. Yeah, a lot of things to think about in this. And I think this is definitely come award season. Although I don't know, it will be eligible. Yeah. I know this came out in Europe last year, or maybe even 2 years ago, but it'll be interesting to rewatch it during awards season.
I don't know if it will be eligible since it was already nominated for Independent Spirit Awards. So I think that's it. I think it's already.
Oh,
already done. Sadly, I know. Sadly,
Oh,
I mean,
I also want to say this is one of the greatest movie titles of all time. Our Father the Devil. That's amazing. I love it. I love that title. So
I thought it was funny that the French title was Mon Père le Diable.
My Father.
Yeah, My Father.
Yeah.
Right, My Father the Devil, not Our Father the Devil. Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
But I like
switch.
the English title better.
Yeah, I do too. I want to speak to Dave about something you had said when you said about how you think Father Patrick is really contrite and he's atoning and making amends. And I agree. And I think what's so beautiful and brilliant about this film is it raises the question, when you've done atrocities, when you have been murderous and horrid, and that's not even, like, that word doesn't even encapsulate the full scope of the crimes he's committed against humans and humanity. How do you make amends? What can you ever do to atone? And I think that that's so fascinating that the film is raising that question. And also, like, how do you work through your feelings of guilt and trauma and vengeance and all of that? Like, this film is just so good. It's so damn good.
Yeah,
it
really
is.
I love it.
I mean, and those are questions that plague us as a society. Like, how do we reckon with people who've done terrible things? And I think we're still trying to figure it out because we're not doing a great job of it right now. You know, it's like certain people they claim that they're canceled, but they still keep working. And it's just like, how do we figure out? There's obviously legal remedies that we can try and take, but those don't always work, or they don't seem like appropriate justice for everybody. So it's like, how do we solve some of these issues? I don't know.
Yeah, I was like thinking about when you mentioned canceling, I was like, are you talking about cancel culture? And you 100% are. That's, oh my, I shouldn't even broach that because that's not real. And I know you said supposedly canceled, but yeah,
people
it's not
claiming
real.
That they're canceled.
Yeah.
Yes,
right. But they're not, because they're still working. They're still fine. They're still reaping the benefits. They're fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big difference between I feel like getting quote unquote canceled is just people having to reckon with their shitty behavior, whether it's racist or sexist or homophobic. And they have to deal with the consequences of people being like, hey, this is not acceptable. This is bullshit. This is cruel. And that's a very different thing than like what they're talking about. But yeah, but it is a part of it though, Evan. You're right. Like it is, it may be a different part. It may be a smaller part, but it's still a part of it. Like, how do you deal with doling out punishment? And, you know, like I think of like incarceration and, you know, I think we need to abolish prisons. I don't think they work. I don't think they are doing anything helpful because most people who are in them need health care, whether that's mental health care or physical health care or both. But yeah, but how do you deal with, yeah, you're right. We have not done a good job as a society.
Nope, we're still trying to figure it out, and I respect that the movie kind of it says like it is. There's no real easy answer to any of this.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me, I mean, and I didn't read the press notes. I usually do, but I didn't this time. But it seems very clear that Ellie Fumbi is, because she's also from Guinea. This seems like a very personal film in a way, like whether it's personal for her as an individual or her family, or whether she's just speaking, you know, from her country. It's very clear, like these are questions that she wanted to delve into for very salient reasons.
Mm-hmm. Very effectively delved into, I will say.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know about you guys, but when Marie took that frying pan to Father Patrick, I like gasped. I was just shocked. I was like, whoa.
I was stunned.
Yeah.
I wondered if it was going to be one of those things where it would cut back to her having imagined it, but then I was like, nah, this is not that kind of movie.
No, she did that. And he just kept encroaching on her space too. He was just so intimidating. And even in like the early scenes when Shauna and I were watching it, it was like a discussion of whether we thought that he recognized her or not. Like when he goes and asks her for the potatoes and the fish and the line, it's like you see a glimmer on his face, like he might have recognized her, but you're not really sure. And then it's like
Right.
he's in the kitchen and he's like being really intimidating and like in her space, and you're like, okay, is he is this like purposeful? Like he's really trying to intimidate her specifically, or is he just so like out to lunch that he doesn't understand like how all of this behavior is just so bad for someone to deal with?
Right. And it's funny that you say that because I was thinking like if if you're like a war like if you were a child soldier warlord and you did all of these terrible things, wouldn't you like lay low and not be up in people's
Right.
space and shit? But then I'm like, but
Mhm.
wait, he might have been a priest for like 20 years. Maybe he, got complacent and got comfortable. And or who knows, maybe he did recognize her and he was trying to intimidate her, or maybe he didn't recognize her and he was just like, oh, hey, I'm a black person. She's a black person. We're going to connect. Like,
Right.
like
Exactly.
who knows? But it's wild to think because also if you take it out of that context and just think about the fact of it's like a dude encroaching on a woman's space, like, it's so creepy. And it's like he clearly
Mhm.
is not aware. Or maybe he is. We just don't know. We don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't, and that's another thing that makes the movie so interesting in those early scenes. Does
Right.
he recognize her? Is he doing this on purpose? Is he just clueless and an idiot and not realizing that he's just triggering someone?
Right. I will say though that if he does recognize her and he's intentionally trying to intimidate her, it would kind of erode his like
His
penance
position?
that he's
Yep.
been doing. Yeah.
Mhm. Big time.
Yeah. But the fact that that actor is doing such a great job that I was like, oh, I don't know if I want him dead. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the fact that I'm like this horrible person, I'm not sure I want him dead, speaks volumes about this movie and the performances. Oh, so good.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any final thoughts?
I don't. I think we really well. Maybe you both do, but I think we covered a lot of ground in a good way.
Yeah. I liked the fact that Jean, the woman that she was friends with at the nursing home, that their relationship wasn't strictly that they just knew each other from the nursing home. It's that she was the woman was a chef at the Culinary Institute, and Marie was one of her star pupils, and she had brought her along or recommended her for this particular position. So
Yeah.
to me, that gave their relationship more depth and made it more believable to me that they had a close relationship and friendship, in addition to her saying, okay, I'm going to change my will and leave you this, cabin that's been in my family for decades or whatever.
I absolutely love that. I love that she's like, no, fuck you, my spoiled brat grandson. I'm
Yeah.
leaving it
Oh yeah,
to
that guy's
Marie.
a brat. Yep.
Yeah, you've come to see
What a
me.
crybaby.
You've come to see me twice in 2 years, and now you're talking about selling the cabin to whatever. Fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
And the cabin is really neat too, and it's on a great piece
is.
of land. So
Mm-hmm.
It's gorgeous, stunning. Yeah, I also really appreciate Marie and Jean's relationship too. That it's very, it makes sense because mentor mentee, but I like that even still, even in the nursing home, she's retired. She's still like, oh, well, with the duck, a squash would be really great instead of potatoes. Like, I love that she's like giving her constructive, criticism and giving her a lot of positive validation.
but with love,
just
totally
really
with
love that.
love.
Yes, absolutely with love.
Right.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, not in that like shitty professor energy.
It's like, what shitty professors did you have?
Oh man.
Actually, I had some shitty ones too, but I also had some lovely ones who were very, very lovely and supportive. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
it just
the ones that
depends.
like to say I'm tough but fair.
Oh
Ew.
God.
No one should ever say that.
That's like someone who tells you that they're a nice guy. It's like, are you sure?
Oh, gross. Someone tells you they're a nice guy, yeah, run for the hills.
Yeah.
Yeah. My final thing I will say is that, and we already did talk about this, but the ending is just so stunning. And Evan, you said that your brain was working a mile a minute because you were like, what happens now? And I get the sense that that's what the characters might be feeling too. Like, I think Marie is just exhausted from all of the physical ordeal as well as the emotional drain of crying and sobbing and the catharsis of admitting all that she's done. But I think there is a part too, like, well, where do I go now? What do I do now? And I think that that's a very realistic, even though this particular situation of kidnapping someone and torturing them is not realistic necessarily. I think that the finale is very realistic. Like, where do you go from here? How do you heal? How do you move forward? How do we coexist? And I just think it's such a beautiful, it's a visually beautiful. I'm such a sucker for cameras looking at people when their backs are to the camera, but it's such a beautiful visual shot, but it's also beautiful thematically too, like what it's saying. Like, how do you heal? Ugh. I could just talk about this movie all day. It's so great.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
All right, that's my last thing. Okay, so let's do a recap. So Perpetrator is in theaters in Chicago and in New York, and it is streaming on Shudder. Dave, would you recommend it? I'm going to guess no, but you might. You might surprise us.
Yeah, don't go.
Okay.
I can't recommend.
And I'm going to say see it. I think it is weird and interesting, and there's enough good stuff here. But like Dave said, it is not a middle of the road film. You're either probably going to love it or hate it. Maybe not hate, but not be into it. But I definitely think there's enough good stuff here, so I will recommend it. And Our Father the Devil is playing in New York and LA theaters, and hopefully it will expand soon. I think it's safe to say we all would recommend it, right?
Hell
For
yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely an enthusiastic recommendation. All right. Well, we want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
We also want to give a huge thank you and shout out to our amazing editor, Otto Clammer, who makes us sound great week after week. Thanks so much, Otto.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. We are all over the place. You can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can also say hi to us on social media. We are at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, and TikTok. So come follow us. Come say hello. Let us know what you think of these movies or any other movies, or ask us questions. And you can also email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
At 86221-PEACE.
Leave us a voicemail message, text us. Let us know, did you love Perpetrator, or did you also have issues with it too? Or what did you think about Our Father the Devil? We hope you loved it as much as we did, but we always love hearing what you have to say. If you like the show, please consider rating and reviewing us. That really helps us get the word out. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, and that will take you to your preferred platform of choice. You also can rate us directly on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. Apple Podcasts especially helps us out. And let's see, what else? Oh, Patreon. If you're a patron, thank you so much. You already know all the goodies you get. But if you're not, consider joining, because as I said at the top of the show, this week we talked about a patron's request. It was Transformers, the movie, the 1986 animated film. We had a lot of fun talking about that. And you get bonus episodes each week like that for $5 a month. And you also get to vote in monthly polls, which is pretty cool. And I think that is everything. Oh, and if you go to our website, you can also check out our merch. We have lots of cool merch at spoilerpiece.com. All right. Well, my name is Megan Kearns. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Opinion S World, or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The Opinion S.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write for the Chicago Reader. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can follow me on, I got to think about this, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, as Dave Sees Movies, and I think that's what I am on Blue Sky too, but I can't remember. So if if you're on in those places, Dave sees movies, you'll probably find me.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, and Threads as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
Thanks so much, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.